This is the literal step-by-step to going from feeling like it's not working to it actually working. Hello and welcome to Full Body Yes Sales, the podcast where we show you how to make more sales than ever in your online business in a way that feels authentic, empowering, and feels completely aligned with how you want to do business. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Full Body Yes Sales. I'm so excited to have you here. We're going to be jumping into a very exciting conversation today. As you can probably see from the title, I have my iced latte here, which I'm trying not to spill on myself, but it's here for the aesthetics and for the caffeine as well to get us through this episode. And I'm so excited to jump into this topic because this is such an important one. And I see so many people in the online space in this position and getting so stuck in this for weeks and months and sometimes even years, where you're in that position of it feels like it's not working. It feels like no one's really buying. And how do I get out of this? Because it can feel so hard getting out of that trench and when you've been really stuck in that place. And we're going to talk through a specific client example because I think this highlights this beautifully, and the advice that I would give to every single person who is really in this position. The advice that I would give, I think, is the exact advice that I gave this client. And it's so interesting seeing what happened after this and when she actually did get out of this, because she wasn't in this for long. She was really just in this place for a couple of weeks of really feeling like nothing was really happening. I'm gonna put this down. Nothing was really happening and people weren't buying. Not that that wasn't necessarily true, but she was really in that place of feeling like, oh, it's not working. I can't yet see the results from all the things that we've put into place. When are the things going to be happening, essentially? And then literally a few weeks later, she had booked 4 sales calls in 1 week for her one-to-one program. So things turn around really quickly, and I'm going to share with you the advice that I gave her to help this turn around so fast. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge this is a hard moment in business. And when we see the stats on how many people, quit their business in the first year, I think this is a big reason why, because there's always that pattern we go through where we can't yet see the results. We've, to use a good analogy, we've planted the seeds, but the tree hasn't yet appeared above ground. The fruit hasn't yet grown. And we're waiting there and thinking, is it going to work? Is this going to happen? When's this going to happen? How long am I waiting? It just feels kind of endless and forever. And it's so normal to be in that place. I think every single person goes through that place. The important thing though is staying in the game through that, because that is the hardest test of you as an entrepreneur, really. If you can stick through that, you can literally get through anything. Let's be real. With that client then that I mentioned, as I said, she was in a place for really a couple of weeks. It had been a bit more just quiet with leads for her. She felt like, she'd been selling, she'd been really showing up and doing an amazing job of talking about her offer, but there was no one really reaching out and things weren't really feeling like they were happening there. So she really came to one of our coaching calls and we were really talking through the idea of, it feels like it's not working right now. And one question which I asked her, which I want you to ask yourself if you're feeling like you're in this position, because it is so powerful and this is going to be the thing which gets you out of this slump. And that is the question that, is it really true that nothing is happening? Is it really true? Because oftentimes we'll jump to that place in our mind of it feels like nothing's happening, nothing's working. But is it really true? Is that the actual reality in your business, that nothing at all is happening? Or is it just that very end result, aka clients, sales, income, whatever that end piece is for you right now, that end goal, is it just the case that that end goal hasn't happened yet, so we feel like nothing is happening, when actually things have been happening? We've had people engaging, we've had people following, we've had people voting on our polls, we've had people responding to our emails, whatever that is there. But is it really true, firstly, that nothing's happening? Now, this is really important because in the business process, in the client's buying decision, 90% of that process is kind of hidden. We don't really know when they're thinking about working with us. We don't really know when they're considering the program. We don't know when they're stalking the sales page necessarily, but we do know that very end piece. We see when they reach out and book a sales call. We see when they sign up for the program and actually put in their credit card information, right? We only really see that final 10%. So it's really easy for us to, knowing that we can only see that final 10%, look at the whole picture and say nothing's happening because we can't see this first 90%. Does it mean that things aren't happening? Absolutely not, but that is covered to us. This is invisible to us, that first 90%. So it's really easy for us to say nothing is happening when actually that isn't really true for you. And it's really helpful to actually have that realization, that just moment of awareness of realizing that actually me feeling like nothing is happening, the truth behind that is just that that final 10% hasn't happened yet. this 90%, I can't see any of this. This can very easily be happening. I could very easily right now have someone who's looking at my sales page and clicking on those links and is looking through my offer, is seeing the stories I'm posting about my offer, whatever it is. I could very easily have someone right now who is actively thinking about working with me, but I have no idea because I'm only seeing that final 10%. And this is really helpful for us because it means that then we can actually realize that firstly, is it really true that nothing is happening? Probably not. Realistically, there's someone who's somewhere along this decision-making process, whether that's at 10%, whether they're at 50%, whether they're at 80% and about to reveal themselves, there's someone who's somewhere along this, and it's really helpful to just keep that in mind. And then that means that when we are taking the actions, we don't need to see it as okay, I sold my offer today and no one bought, so it didn't work. We can actually see it instead as every single time I show up and take one of these actions, i.e. selling my offer, I'm talking about how people can work with me, I'm just aiming to move the needle 1% for someone. I'm just aiming to push someone just 1% in that decision-making process to get them from 20% to 21% essentially. And knowing that we can't see all of that, we can actually be okay knowing that those things are happening, we just aren't aware of them yet. And really focusing with those actions then on that idea that it's not a did it work yes or no, because it's not as black and white as that. And you know, whenever you've made any buying decisions as well, typically there hasn't been one thing that sold you on it. It was a yes or a no. Typically it's been a whole series of a lot of things. It was that post they did that was really helpful. It was that podcast you listened to. It was that email they wrote. Then it was that special offer which they put out on the program which you bought, etc. But it's really helpful to just see each action as just moving the needle 1%. And I think that's why we get so stuck sometimes because, again, coming back to this client, she was really in that position of it feels like nothing's working. It feels like I'm putting out the things and it's just not working. Essentially, they're not doing anything because I can't see them doing anything. Whereas actually, if we can have that mindset shift and realize that they are doing things, we just can't see them yet. And our whole aim, if we just keep this idea in mind of just we want to move the needle 1% with someone in our audience when we're posting up these stories talking about our offer, for example, we just want to move the needle 1%. It helps so much to realize that actually each piece that we're putting out did actually work. It's not that it didn't work. It's not that we need to do something else or switch up the strategy. We just need to continue doing it because if it's moving 1%, just doing the maths, if we post it 100 times, for example, great, we've signed a client from there. Obviously, it doesn't work out exactly like that, but it's really helpful for us to just see that we're just moving the needle a tiny bit each time. That is our whole intention. And essentially then, the more we're talking about our offer, we're not almost, instead, if you were previously feeling like this, you're not almost validating this idea that, oh my gosh, it's not working every time we talk about the offer. Instead, every time we talk about the offer, we're thinking, okay, great, that moved it 1% for someone. Great, what if I was to talk about the offer twice as much? What if I was to speak about it even more? Because we're just moving the needle even quicker for someone and we're moving someone quicker into that 10% zone where I can actually see things happening, right? So instead of feeling like I'm putting all this energy out and I'm doing all these things and it's not working and it's a waste of time, it's not at all. We just need to switch the perspective of actually it is moving the needle, and what we really need to do is double down on that. What we really need to be doing is talking about things more and actually leaning more into that, because that is what is going to get us, as this client did, going from feeling like nothing's working to signing a new client and booking 4 sales calls in literally just 1 week. And then the second aspect to this, and I think this is why it feels so intense for people all of the time, is what are we actually making this mean? Because we place a lot of meaning on things in business. We think that, okay, we didn't hit our income goal this month, so that means this business is never going to be successful. So that means I can't have a 5K month because I don't know how to do that, etc. What are you making it mean? What meaning are you placing on that? Because that is where this emotional charge comes from. And that's where this almost pattern that we can get stuck in of it feels like it's not working feels so intense, because it feels like it's so heavily not working because we're making it mean something. And we're making it mean, for example, that, okay, I didn't sign that client that I wanted to sign last month. That means, will I ever sign a client? Is this business ever going to be successful? And that's not actually true, right? We're just creating a meaning around this. We're creating a story around this on what this could actually mean by what's happening right now. And I honestly think this is why so many women especially get so stuck in this, and so many people quit entrepreneurship when they get stuck in this place of it looks like it's not working, it feels like nothing's happening, because it feels so intense, because we're putting so many meanings around this. We're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just unlucky. It's just not going to work for me. Whereas luck has nothing to do with it in business, let's be real. But we think that it has so many meanings and it has so much almost depth to it because of the emotions we're putting on whatever we are seeing or not seeing. And again, if we just take one of those examples and just dive a little bit deeper in there and taking the example of, if I didn't sign a client last month and I didn't hit my goal of signing one client last month, and I'm now making this mean and I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, will I be successful in business? Will I be able to sign clients? Is this actually going to work out for me? If I'm placing all those meanings on it, it feels so intense trying to get out of that. And actually, if we ask ourselves, again, that first question, is this really true? Is this really the truth? Does it actually mean that you're not going to be able to sign a client? Does it actually mean you're not going to be successful? Or is this just business? I think we almost forget in the online space how, normal businesses work of if you break even in your first year, as in just make zero loss, zero profit, it's a success. Most people would be super happy with that, just breaking even in the first year. And I think we see so many stories, which obviously we see them because they're the shiny stories on Instagram that get all the traction, etc. It makes a lot of sense. But we see so many stories of people having this crazy success so fast that we think this is the norm. And we think that if we're not meeting those standards, it means there's something wrong, or it means it's not working for us, or it's harder for us, or anything along those lines, when actually it's not true. You're just running a business. You're here to build something long-term and sustainable anyway. So realistically, why do we care how much we made in July? Does it really matter? In 5 years' time, you're going to be looking back on July 2024 and saying, oh my gosh, I only made this much. Yeah, it was a really bad month. Or are you not even going to be able to remember? If you asked yourself, you have been in business for 2 years plus, if you asked yourself 2 years ago, looking back now, how much did you make in July 2022? You probably couldn't even remember. You probably can barely remember anything from that month because it was so long ago. And realistically, in the big picture, it doesn't matter on one individual month that much. So if you're in this place right now of feeling like it's not working, nothing's happening, dive into what you're actually making this mean. What meaning are you putting behind this? What stories are you telling around this? Because that is where the weight of this really comes from, and we need to break those down. And you can do that super easily by just asking yourself, is this really true? Is this actually true? Or is this just something I'm just placing a story around, just placing some emotion around this when it's not actually true here? Because we need to switch this energy. You cannot get out of this ditch feeling of feeling like you're in this ditch and really stuck in this place if you're feeling like you have a freaking weight attached to your foot. We're not going to get out of this, right? We need to get rid of the weight and then we can start climbing out of this. So get rid of some of that heaviness that you're feeling around it and just work through that by just asking yourself the very logical and factual question of, is it actually true? 99% of the time, the answer will be no, and it's just a story I'm telling myself here. So it's really easy for us then to just kind of reduce the weight of that a little bit. We just want to make it a little bit lighter, what we're carrying as we're kind of getting out of this place essentially. And then your third step here is we need to switch the energy. It is so hard to be in that place of signing clients and things going really well when you are feeling really panicky about things, when you're feeling really frantic about things, and especially when you're feeling in that place of nothing's working, oh my gosh, the clients aren't coming, I'm not signing clients, I'm not making sales. It's really easy to get into that place of feeling like I need a client right now, because to validate that I am able to be successful, I need a client right now. And we get into this really panicky place where we're really frantically searching for that client and we just show up so differently. I think this client, again, is a perfect example of this, of when she was in that state of feeling a bit panicky around things. Once we were able to get her to that place of really feeling neutral around things, she literally, I'm not joking, the next week after our call, that was the week where she booked 4 sales calls. These came out of nowhere. There wasn't the leads hanging out beforehand or anything like that. They literally came out of the blue. Some of them slid into her DMs out of nowhere, but it was because she really switched her energy around this, and she wasn't showing up from a place anymore of, I need a client, of someone please sign on right now. She was showing up from a place of, I would love to help you. I would love to help you with this. I can really help you, provide so much value to you. But she wasn't in that place of, I need a client. And going back again to that analogy of that decision-making process of the 90% being really hidden, the 10% is the part we can see where people are booking sales calls, people are signing on for the program, hitting the checkout button, entering credit card details, all those things we can actually see. When we're in that place of really, oh my gosh, I need clients, we almost ignore that 90% that actually does need to happen still in the decision-making process. Yes, some people go through it way quicker than others, but that needs to happen. People need to go through the place of know, like, and trust us, right? Before they can actually get to insert my credit card details here. But when we're in that place of, I need to sign a client, we really just focusing in on that final 10%. It is so bad for us, because actually that's going to stop us from getting a client, because we're not speaking to someone about why they should work with us even. We're just, okay, sign up here, sign up here, sign up here, discount if you sign up this week, special offer today, only 2 spaces left. We're really trying to just reach those final 10% people. And if you're feeling like nothing's happening, if it's looking like nothing's happening, then you maybe don't have anyone in that final 10% right now. Doesn't mean it's not working. Again, there are people in that 90%, I pretty much guarantee it. But if there's not anyone in that final 10%, then saying there's a special offer $100 off this month if you sign up, or there's only 2 spaces left, that doesn't land with people. No one cares at this point because they're not even thinking about the program yet. They are only just starting to think about working with you or realize they could potentially get some value from working with you. So us trying to speak to that final 10%, that is not the move to be making in this position. And this is why we really need to get out of this place, not just from a woo-woo energetic perspective. Yes, that too, absolutely. Fully believe that as well. But from a really practical perspective as well of, if we are feeling like I need a client and we're feeling so panicky and frantic around this and we're just speaking to that final 10%, it is really, really hard for us to actually sign a client. We're making it difficult because we're completely ignoring this 90% who are going, okay, but why should I even work with you? What value can you even provide me? Are you even a good fit for me? Those people who still have those questions, we just kind of ignore them and they just stay stuck at the position they're at. They don't actually move forward. So we're almost trying to harvest the fruit when the fruit isn't even there yet. And we're just cutting away at the trees. To use that analogy again, we're just kind of cutting away at the trees because we're trying to find fruit, but the fruit hasn't even grown yet. But actually, if we just watered the damn plant, aka focus on that 90%, the fruit would grow pretty quickly versus just trying to harvest something that isn't even there, essentially. So actually just realizing that you need to shift your energy because those people are not ready yet for that final 10%. Those tactics are not going to be the thing which works for you right now. And you can still get a client right now. It's not saying that we have to wait loads of time for this fruit to grow and wait loads of time for the clients to be in that final 10%. They can happen really, really fast and they can get to that place really fast if we actually speak to them where they're at. And if we actually go back to that place where you are feeling really neutral about things, where you are feeling really good about things, and actually just show up and sell in the way that you normally would, because you know how to sell things, you know how to talk about your offer, you know how to connect with people, you know that you know how to do all of those things, but it's the frantic energy which throws you off and makes it hard for you to actually connect with people there. So we need to get back to a really good place of just feeling neutral about things. We don't need to feel fake positive of, oh my gosh, it's going so well, I'm going to be so successful. We don't need to be in that place, but we just need to be neutral. We don't need to have this heaviness, we don't need to have this weight as we're going about selling things. So how do you actually get rid of some of that heaviness and get rid of some of that weight and actually get to a place of good energy and feeling, positive about this and feeling like you can be in that neutral place when you're showing up and selling? The question I would ask there is, do you actually need to sign a client this month? Is it actually true that you need to sign a client this month? Or are you making the not signing a client mean something again? Again, these 2 questions are just so helpful here because most of us, we don't really actually need to sign a client this month. You would be completely fine if you didn't sign a client this month. Nothing would happen in your life. Nothing would change differently. Nothing would be implicated. Sure, the number in your bank account might be a little bit lower because you didn't sign a client, or, you might feel that, oh my gosh, it means that I'm not successful. It means that this is not going to work, etc. But really that goal to sign a client this month, it's coming out of wanting, not needing, right? So when we can look at it from that, we can realize actually, I don't need to sign a client this month. I'd love to sign a client. That would be super exciting. Absolutely can be in that place. But do I need to sign a client this month? Do I need to be putting this pressure on myself? Or can I actually just relax a little bit? Because the moment you can actually relax, that's when the client can actually come in. And it can be so helpful to just look at things really practically here. One task that I gave that client after we had this call, just before she had that week of, 4 people reaching out for a sales call and booking those with her, was actually to have a look at the very practical numbers, as in she was feeling panicky and, oh my gosh, if I don't sign a client, what's this going to mean? What's this going to do? What are the implications going to be? And I said, okay, have a look at those. Just literally have a look at the numbers, go through the bank account, go through the expenses, go through the income, figure out what it will look like if you don't, and realize that actually you'll be okay. Because if you can realize that you'll be okay, there's not this pressure, there's not this I need this fight or flight kind of feeling around this. There's really then just open up space for you to actually have that want and have that desire of, I would love to sign a client. That feels exciting. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel pressured. It just feels really exciting, the idea that I could sign a client this month. So we really need to get to that place, and practically just looking at the numbers, just running the figures can be a really great way to do that and realize that actually you are safe, you are completely fine. I think it's also so helpful to remember that If you are watching this, you did not start your business for quick cash. You are here for a long-term career. You are here to build a business that is going to be here in 5 years. It's going to be here in 10 years. That is going to be your freaking career. So why do we care how much money we made in July? Really? Why does it matter? It's so much an ego thing often of just, we feel like we need to do that to be successful. Or what would people say if they knew we only made this much or we didn't sign a client this month? It doesn't matter really. If you're here to build a long-term business, does it matter how much you made in 1 month? Really, does it matter? Does it matter if it took you 1 month longer to sign that client? Not really. You're never going to even notice this long term. So actually just getting back to that place of realizing that you are not even here for quick cash. That's not even why you started this business in the first place. Just some people online convinced you that you need to be focusing on quick cash and you need to be focused on how much you made this month because that's going to mean if you're going to be successful or not. And it's not true. It's complete BS. So actually realizing, just coming back to that realization of I'm here for a long-term business anyway. So why am I caring so much? Why am I so worried about how much I'm making this month? Because it doesn't actually mean anything. Nothing's changing. Nothing's happening based on this. It's just a number and it really doesn't actually change or mean anything for me. And the one final point that I want to leave you with, because I think this is the most beautiful analogy and just the most helpful thing in this kind of moment, is if you just keep moving in your business, you literally cannot fail. And I'll use a really great analogy for this that I always use with clients or any conversations when we're kind of speaking about this. And that is delivering flyers through a door. If I told you right now, if you're a web designer, for example, and I said, okay, to get your next client, what I want you to do is go around your neighborhood and deliver physical flyers, leaflets, piece of paper, advertising your website designing services, just through people's doors in your neighborhood. Is that the best way to get a client? Probably not. We know it's probably not in a very effective way because most of the people you're delivering to don't even have a website. Most of them don't even care about getting a website. Most don't have a business. So most of them, literally probably 90% plus, are not even your ideal clients to begin with, let alone anyone who's actually needing that service. So we know it's not the best strategy. But do you feel confident that if I told you to go and do that, you would sign a client? Probably yes. Would it take you a year? Would it take you 5 years? It absolutely might because it's kind of a slow strategy. But realistically, you're going to get a client. If you just keep doing this for 50 freaking years, you will sign a client from that. You will find someone at some point who needs a website designer from all of those flyers. So it's really helpful looking at strategies from that perspective of it's not a case of is it going to work, yes or no. It's just a case of how long is it going to take to work for this? And we can always get a better strategy, but it's never a case of is it going to work, yes or no. It will always work. It's just a case of holding through for that moment when it does actually work. So I think that's just really helpful and almost a comforting thing of business that if you don't give up, if you don't, quit the business, it literally cannot fail. It might take longer than you think, and that's completely fine. Again, you're here to build a long-term business. Does it really matter if you don't find success in July 2024 specifically? Not really, but it might take a little bit longer, but that's completely okay. And this is the part where, it makes or breaks businesses, honestly, of just can you keep going through those moments when it gets really hard, when it feels like it's not working, can you keep going there? So summary of what you need to do. Number one, is it actually true? Really question the things that you're feeling right now because we need to remove some of this weight and just check in on what you're making this mean right now. And again, is that actually true? And then we need to switch the energy here because when you're in this place of feeling like I desperately need a client, you're not going to be signing a client right now. So we need to switch that energy and get you to a place where you're feeling really neutral and you're feeling just excited about signing a client as well. So that is how to show up in your online business when it feels like nothing's working, it feels like no one's buying, and exactly the advice that I gave my client to get her literally the very next week getting 4 sales calls booked in, going from feeling like it's not working and nothing's really happening. So take this advice, listen to this twice if you need to, listen in the car, take it all in and really sit with this because this can be the biggest shift and actually you can get really big results from this really, really fast as well. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Full Body Yes Sales. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe. New episodes coming every single Monday. We're going to be talking all things sales mindset, sales tactics, and how you can make sales actually feel like a full body yes as a female entrepreneur. So make sure you subscribe and stick around so you don't miss the next one. And thank you so much for joining. I will see you in the next episode.